What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So over the weekend, a story dropped that had people very concerned because it seemed to show Sony backing away from Blu-ray production, but there's a bit more to that story, and we're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about some classic titles with Activision that started to make the rounds again because it appeared in the storefront, and it could actually be part of the Activision Blizzard Game Pass drop that we're all waiting for. And then we'll also be talking about Steam, as their big summer sale is now live, that is actually bringing some pretty hefty discounts, especially for Steam Deck owners. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members to the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which is now out, and the reviews have been alright for it, but it is very much so the game from the 3DS, Dark Moon, just brought up and kind of visually touched up for HD displays, we'll say, with the Switch. And of course, people have been going through the files, data mining it, and, well, you can see this was shown over on Twitter X, where, yes, the file structure is exactly the same. That really shouldn't be too surprising. We already know it's the same game, so I'm not really sure why this got passed around and was kind of a joking thing. It's just the optics of it. But it's the same game. I guess the thing that really threw people off is that there is still a folder for Street Pass, and people thought, oh wow, the 3DS Street Pass. Well, the game didn't technically use Street Pass, especially from what I remember. I never used it there or anything. But the folder contained, this is according over on Reddit, Scare Scraper Exclusive Ghost. They were just named that. So they just kind of kept it because that's just how it was, and it's just sort of that funny coincidence that it's based on a 3DS game that it's not costing a ton for Nintendo to port over, and oh yeah, that Street Pass folder is still there. But no, it's pretty basic stuff here, very straightforward. Yes, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is very much the same game you played on the 3DS years and years ago. Also, we have another update in the situation of PlayStation 3 emulation on the PS5, something that people are really hoping to have an announcement around sometime soon. Well, we can see this posted up. This one's over on Respawn First, who noticed a patent titled Backward Compatibility Testing of Software in a mode that attempts to induce skew. So sort of a way for them to test software for backwards compatibility for a console that we assume is the PlayStation 5. And what else do we figure they'd be testing with Mark Cerny having worked on quite a bit with backwards compatibility for what seems to be PS3? Well, that's kind of what we're looking at here, is a way for them to stress test maybe older titles, run it through this setup so they can find any points that it may stress or then break. And I mean, we all assume it's going to happen eventually, because the way that they're running PS3 games now are through server blades that are custom built with legitimately the cell processor, and those are only going to last for so long, and when they're gone, what do you do? So I figure Sony has been working on some sort of emulation layer for quite some time. It could even just be for like servers in order to fake being a cell processor, obviously through emulation, to continue that on. I would like to think that they would have that set up just for the PS5 natively, because there are a lot of games that they can go back, they can repackage essentially through this emulation layer, and then, yes, resell to us all over again, or add into that PlayStation Plus premium tier. There's a lot of extra value they can unlock immediately if they go that route. Oh, and we did get the file size for Astrobot, which we can see this was posted up by Genki. Says the Astrobot file size will be around 66 gigabytes. They added some context here with Astro's Playroom being around 11 gigabytes. This came way of the back, it looks like, of like a retail box that was out for advertisement purposes, and yes, 66 gigabytes. That's what's displayed on the box, which means there'll probably be a day one patch, and most likely, with how day one patches go, probably push it closer or even over 70 gigabytes. That is, I know we don't necessarily go off of file size for how big a game is necessarily, because there was the whole thing about Mario Odyssey being just over 5 gigabytes. That game's pretty big. So while I can't necessarily then say, wow, this is a massive title, that is quite a bit bigger than Astro's Playroom. And that's sort of what we're expecting here, just a larger built-out Astro's Playroom here with the full retail release coming up here in just a few months. So exciting stuff. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a report that was circulating over the weekend that appears to point towards Sony backing off of Blu-ray production. Well, cutting back on their workforce that is there to manufacture Blu-rays Somewhat. All right. So again, there is some context to this story, but first let's take a look at the original report. This was posted up by Mainichi. The Mainichi, this is Japan's national daily since 1922. It says Sony to cut 250 jobs from recordable media business key hub. They say it's a recordable media business key manufacturing hub in northeastern Japan, and they will be offering early retirement packages to its employees. Sources close to the matter said Saturday. The workforce there currently has around 670 people, so they'll be cutting 250. Electronics and entertainment conglomerate will also gradually cease production of optical disc storage media products, including Blu-ray discs, according to the sources. Now, as I looked into this further and further, it was originally kind of being mentioned as this is Sony just in general cutting back on production of Blu-ray outright. So in stores or just for movies, for games. People were unsure if it was going to affect PlayStation as an example. Well, as I looked into this further, one, it appears to just be focused specifically in Japan, like for products. And then the other thing, it's mostly just for recordable media. So think of CDRs, DVD-R, BDR, Blu-ray, and I'm curious how many people out there in the last year have burned something to a Blu-ray. Now, I'm sure some of you are watching this have, but I'd say the vast majority of people don't even have a disk drive right now in their desktop PC that maybe they built to play games on, or even just ones in the office now. I mean, we're getting to a point where you just don't really see, even laptops, they've removed them so that they can then make the laptop even thinner. That was a pretty big footprint that they had to accommodate for, was a large DVD drive that went to the side of the laptop. So it's not like it's common for people to run around burning discs like they did a decade ago, where you would see that much more, right? Burning CDs and DVDs back in like 2006, 2007, very common stuff. You would have your operating system even like load up Windows Vista or 7, whereas now you run everything to a USB stick. And Blu-ray to me never really took off as a consumer level storage medium. I just didn't see many people out there burning Blu-rays consistently, and that could have been just for the pricing of the Blu-rays at the time, and even when they kind of went down in price to pick up a pack of, say, 25 Blu-rays, we were already starting to kind of move on with the streaming and digital age taking over. But this doesn't necessarily have anything to do at this time with press discs specifically. So the way they press them and ship them out, I think that even takes place, I think that's manufactured like in Mexico, I believe, for Sony. So this doesn't seem to have any kind of effect on games, as an example right now for PlayStation. Will they eventually move away from it? I think most people believe, just the way that the industry is trending, yes. This does not seem to be an indication of any of that at this time, though. Again, if you're really into Blu-ray movie like burning or data discs, then yeah, this would affect you, I guess. But for now, for the vast majority of people, not really a big deal. Nothing really to see here yet. Next up, let's talk about a couple of classic games for the Xbox 360 and from Hasbro and Activision. There's those Transformer games. If you remember, back then we had Transformers War for Cybertron and then Fall of Cybertron. Awesome games. We also had it up on like the Xbox One and stuff, and I really enjoyed those titles. Specifically though, War for Cybertron back on the Xbox 360 was just an awesome game. And now people are wondering if we may have had a bit of a slip up and seen some hints towards their return through backwards compatibility. Well, we can see this posted up. This thing exploded online, which actually gives me some hope. We'll come back to that, by the way. But this is posted up over on Twitter X from TF Hype Guy, who says, Activision Transformers games relisted. It's been observed that the Activision Transformers games have been relisted on Xbox stores and Steam. They're not available for purchase, of course, but the fact they're back is very interesting. Now, this is very much going to depend on your region, because some people have had these just on their store to at least find and see details of for a long time now. This wouldn't be new to them at all. Some regions don't have these listed at all. Like it's not there. So again, very much region specific. And unfortunately, as much as I would like to tell you this means that yes, we are seeing some movement behind the scenes, and yes, these Transformer games are going to make the return, it's just not necessarily indicative of that. And that, again, unfortunate stuff here, because I would love to see some kind of leak that's like, oh yes, these Transformer games are absolutely coming back. We're going to do backwards compatibility. Although Hasbro seems interested in doing it. If you remember, we had that story where they said Activision lost the code for it, and that's why they couldn't do it. Activision refuted that, then they apologized. So maybe there is something happening there behind the scenes, and I'd like to think they can figure out the licensing issue, because that has been the biggest problem, is just licensing for backwards compatibility. Absolutely. Like, that's one of the reasons we don't see Jet Set Radio Future, because the music and the licensing there is just like impossible to figure out within reason. You can throw enough money at a problem, I'm sure, if you're Microsoft, and make it work, but is it worth it? So I'm hoping these Transformer games get figured out, because those come back with online play. That might be one of the hypest releases of the entire year. All the new games thrown in included. I don't care. Those Transformers games coming back and making it feel like the old days of the Xbox 360 would be awesome. Next up, let's talk about the Steam Summer Sale that is now live, allowing us to fill out our backlog even further. We'll pick up a bunch of games that we'll add to our Steam library and check out a few years from now, but there are some very, very good discounts, and maybe there are some that you wanted to check out on your Steam Deck, as the nice thing about this is you see games that'll be 3 or 4 years old, maybe even older, and they run great on the Steam Deck, and now they're like $2 or $3. Again, we can fill out the backlog even further. There's always room. So let's take a look at some of the games that I picked out here, just some highlights, and of course, leave some suggestions down below, because it's a pretty deep sale overall. There's a lot of stuff marked down. Now, this sale will be running until July 11th. It's live right now. We'll start with Hogwarts Legacy. That is 60% off. Tekken 8, 43% off. Jedi Survivor is 55% off. I know people have told me that on PC it's still kind of rough. I'm not really sure what's going on there, because it's been out for a while. They should have had that completely fixed by now. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, 30% off. There is an entire section that's called Deep Discount Cuts for Steam, and they have things like Disco Elysium Final Cut. That's 90% off, which is absolutely incredible for a game like that. Celeste, also 90% off. Castle Crashers, 90% off. If you missed Castle Crashers back in the day, absolutely worth the few dollars that it's going for here. Sekiro, that's 50% off. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Remember, this has the 3 Mass Effect games in there, all like remastered with better controls and progression and stuff. 90% off. Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, that one's 75% off. Borderlands 3 at 85% off. It's Steam, Valve. I have to at least recommend something like Left 4 Dead 2, which is like $1. It's 90% off. Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition, that one's 75% off. The game still looks awesome. Also a good way to kind of benchmark certain video cards, and in this case, handhelds like a Steam Deck. Hades, that one is 60% off. Mafia Definitive Edition, really enjoyed this remake of the original Mafia game. Highly recommend that. Even 75% off. Like I said, I listed a few here. Definitely leave some recommendations down below, because there's a ton of stuff on sale. And typically these Steam sales come around, and while they do advertise games that are 25% off because they're more expensive, yes, but also they have partners that I'm sure trying to make sure that they're up and front and center. If you really dig down into some of the longer lists of like the specials, you can find some pretty good stuff. Things that are like under $1. So let me know if you find any of those down below in the comments. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about SEGA, who's posted some less than stellar results from their previous fiscal year. In fact, they actually lost quite a bit of money. So let's take a look. This is posted up. This is over on Automaton, who says Sega's operating profit in the past fiscal years. They record April 1st, 2023 to May 31st, 2024. That fell by 86.7%, and the company posted a net loss of 6.65 billion yen, so that's a bit more than $41 million, and the losses are significant considering Sega had made a net profit of 11.488 billion yen in the year before. This is from GameBiz, who had all the numbers tracked, and yeah, that's not a great swing. Went from well profitable there to losing quite a bit of, actually almost losing more than half of it, but in this case, it actually makes sense for Sega. So while they did have some things that performed well, as pointed out here, like we had Infinite Wealth, that did pretty well for them. It sold like 1 million copies in the first week or something. Phantasy Star Online 2 continues to sort of roll along there with just continuous spend in their live service title. The problem they ran into is that they did this structural reform. If you remember, we talked about how certain things like what Hyenas got canceled before it even got out the door. And they also, they sold off Relic Entertainment. They cut 240 employees across all the Sega Europe studios, and that does cost a lot of money up front for them because they'll offer severance packages, that sort of thing. But the idea is over the next few years, it'll make more sense for them with these cost-cutting measures when you plan out games, obviously, we all know by now, you plan out 5, 6, 7 years in the future. And when they do write-downs of games that they cancel, and they did cancel several of them, some we don't know about, some we do like hyenas, they write down, probably in this case, with several games, some close to completion apparently, hundreds of millions of dollars, I mean, very least tens of millions of dollars, which, yes, would not only balance out any profit they would have made continuing from the last fiscal year, but also put them into them just losing tens of millions of dollars. So looking at this, not really unexpected. Some were immediately posting up the image of Microsoft cross SEGA because Microsoft's not bought them. No, I don't see that happening. SEGA Sammy Holdings has said that they don't want to sell their entire gaming division off to something like Microsoft. Just they want to stay in gaming, and really just losing that kind of money now seems to be expected as more of a business decision on their end for the long run. They're working on the next Sonic game and stuff. They have a bunch of things in development, so I think they're just going to continue along here, business as usual for them, and just an unfortunate fiscal year that, yes, they themselves set up to put themselves that far in the net negative. So we'll see what they have coming up, because once I'm sure they announce the next big 3D Sonic game, and there's a lot of excitement there, along with what Atlas I'm sure is cooking up. I think they're going to be doing a bit better in the next fiscal year. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played any Xbox 360 generation Transformers games like Transformers War for Cybertron? 71% say no, 29% say yes. I saw some comments that were like, yeah, these games were awesome at the time, and some said it was jaw-dropping at the time. It's an amazing game. I wish they'd come back to these newer consoles. I kind of feel like if Microsoft made this happen, and I'm sure there's stuff that has to happen in the background for them to get them back on the Xbox store and maybe even into Game Pass under the Activision banner, I do believe that would cause quite a bit of interest online, a lot of excitement, surely. And I don't know if it would drive a ton of Game Pass subscribers, but it would be something added into the service that definitely adds variety. I'll tell you that. There's not a lot of Transformer games on this level. These games are awesome. And technically, to put something over Sony with that, since, I mean, these games wouldn't be backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5. Well, hey, maybe. I mean, if they get PS3 working, you never know there. I mean, I guess in this regard, for something like War for Cybertron, which is the one that I remember the most out of the two, I would like to see it happen with the online play. I think it'd be awesome. But here's hoping Hasbro, Activision, Microsoft can get it all worked out, since apparently they do have the code for it. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Undercover Duck, who says, just out of curiosity, how come sometimes the timestamps are embedded in the video and other times they're only in the description? Yeah, I have no idea. I think this is like a YouTube thing going on, because what happens is I'll put all the stuff, the timestamps, Evan will make sure those are all set up, and I'll put them in the description to go along with the video to make it easy for you guys to jump around for topics you want to watch and hear about and stuff. And sometimes for some reason YouTube just won't pick them up. So what I end up doing is going in, editing like one line. So if there's a 3, I delete it, put the 3 back, save, and then it just repopulates all the timestamps. So I'm not really sure why YouTube has a hard time picking it up initially, and it needs a little bit of a nudge. It's a strange thing, but it's YouTube. It seems like every other week there's some new bug that they've introduced, and then another one they fix. So it's just constantly back and forth with that stuff. But if I can catch it, I'll go in and delete a number and put the number back in, and apparently that'll fix it. So I'll keep an eye on it from now on. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today, we're Sony manufacturing these storage mediums, the discs, the DVDs, the CDs, the BDRs. Let me know if you were someone who got into like the Blu-ray burning, because I just didn't know many people who bought blank Blu-rays to burn data to them. And then also, what about the Steam Summer Sale? Of course, drop some of the recommendations down below. And with Transformers, would you be really excited to see those make a return? And actually, would you buy them? Or if they went into Game Pass, would you subscribe to Game Pass to play them? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.